Hello and welcome to another video Uptown music lesson. My name is Gio Andollo and today we're going to talk about a little bit about reading music. Perhaps you've heard people say that music is a universal language, and while that's true to a certain extent, the reality is that people don't always read, write, and speak music in the same way. But if you live in the United States, as I do, or perhaps in Western Europe, then it's very likely that you and I have a similar understanding of the language of music, since for the most part our music stems from a common heritage, that of the Western music tradition. And this tradition, indeed, has its own language, alphabet, syntax, grammar, that can be written, read, or spoken through singing or the playing of a musical instrument. Of course, it is possible to speak or play music without learning to read or write, just as it's possible to speak English or Chinese or Russian without learning to read or write any of those languages. But I always recommend for beginner musicians to become musically literate in the Western music tradition if the music you're trying to play is within the Western music tradition, which if you're trying to play rock or blues or classical or jazz, it certainly is. I guarantee that being able to read music will improve your musicianship and help you to understand better the music that you're trying to play. So if you'll indulge me, I'd like to just take a few minutes to explain what the different components of music are. Here we have what's called a staff. 5 lines go across the page, 4 spaces. Right at the front of the staff you're going to see what's called a clef. Here you have the treble, and here's the bass clef. The treble clef is used for instruments that are higher in range. Instruments like clarinet or flute, violin, and even the guitar. The bass clef is used for bass instruments such as the double bass, cello, bass clarinet, and bassoon. If you're playing piano or a keyboard instrument, you would see the treble clef on the top, and then you'd have the bass clef down here. So we will see that in future piano lessons. But for the rest of this lesson, we'll just talk about the treble. Next to the clef, you may see a symbol like this, or a symbol like this. You may also see several of one or the other, but definitely you won't see these two different kinds together. You might also see none of those symbols. These symbols are called sharps and flats. And depending on what combination you have there next to the treble clef or the bass clef will determine what key signature you're in. If you saw this at the beginning of the song you were about to play, you would probably be in the key of G, or if not, maybe the key of E minor. But we'll talk more about that in a different video. Next to the key signature you'll see what's called the time signature. Basically you'll see 2 numbers on top of each other. A 4 on top of a 4, a 3 on top of a 4, a 6 on top of an 8. These are 3 different possibilities. There's many other possibilities that you may see in a time signature. But basically, the top number tells you how many beats are in the measure. So in this case, it would be 4 beats in a measure. And what kind of note gets the beat. If it's a 4, it would indicate that the quarter note gets the beat. In 3/4 time, you have 3 beats per measure. And again, the quarter note gets the beat. In 6/8 time, you have 6 beats per measure, and the 8th note equals the beat. We'll talk more about the difference between quarter notes and 8th notes in another video. But basically, for now, what you need to know is that the time signature helps us interpret the rhythm of any given piece of music. The last thing we need that sort of sets up the framework for music is called bar line. These are vertical lines that go up and down across the staff, like so. Now, there are many different kinds of symbols that you're going to see on a music staff, especially on a more complex piece of music. But the ones that are kind of most important are called notes and rests. Notes are symbols that indicate for you to play something, to play a certain pitch on whatever your instrument is. And rests are actually the opposite. They tell you when not to play. As you can see here, there are different kinds of notes. Here you can see a circle that is not filled in with a stem, a circle that is filled in with a stem, circles that are filled in with stems, and then a bar that connects them. These all represent notes that have different durations. And again, we'll talk about that in a different video. Same thing here. These different kinds of rests have different durations. This type of note is longer than this one, is longer than this one and this one. And same here, this rest is longer than this one, is longer than this one and this one. How do we know? It's just by looking at it, by what it looks like. The same way you would look at the letter A and say the sound is ah, or the letter B and the sound is b, b. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video, a primer on the components of written music. Please stay tuned for a lot more on how to read music and how to play a whole bunch of different instruments. Until next time, peace.